Hey, hey guys. I was just like here watching the Cat's Eye Gap ad for like the 100th time by now because the lost count of how mesmerized I am by this one random gene ad. And you see, I'm talking about this ad now because of the whole Sydney Sweeney situation, okay? Because once again, Sydney Sweeney is just your average like blonde chick, again, who isn't even a natural blonde. She dyes her hair blonde. So she, and this will be more relevant for for the stuff I'm gonna talk about later. But like basically, she's in the spotlight because that interview in CQ with that like middle age, 40 age. She's a woman who should be a mother, or it's a typical like age of like the sort of stereotypical mother type, mother character esque, uh, persona character, but like a character based upon a pattern, a behavioral personality pattern seen across from generations to generations of like human society recorded in stories and even in real life examples. Either way, though, either way, so she did this interview with her, Sydney Sweeney, who again, well, if we don't a little crash course history on Sydney Sweeney for those of you who are not fucking chronically online, she was an actress who starred in who didn't make it big until she was in that HBO show called Euphoria, which was just a high school drama. It's a very more adult oriented because they were basically delving into some hedonism, which whether or not we can say all the law should not say it. Either way, in my personal opinion is hedonism. But if it's what you like, then that's what you like. Personally, I don't enjoy that kind of stuff in that sort of particular area involving high schoolers. If it was adults who, the implication is that adults can consent, then minors cannot, and that's just a little a rabbit hole thing that I just don't want to dwell on because it can be problematic to like have that opinion. Either way, but that's besides the point because now we're rolling it on the internet. But either way, yeah, so she got big on Euphoria, but then she started doing things, and she sort of kind of like becoming more center left. Like, she became what liberals were like, I want to say a good 10 years ago, where like liberals weren't so much about like, okay, we don't really care if women are objectified or not, but like, there was like the whole incident with the Hooters, but it's like, for the most part, most women were okay with like, oh yes, I'm hot, I look good, let the world, I'm gonna show off my body to the world, but like not in a way that was overblown, where it was like actual like content that should not be seen around children. If children were around with that regular kind of content, there was a line to be drawn, I want to say. Anyway, so yeah, she's like the average woman from that era of time. Where yeah, it's due, and then she's what Al Bunny ideal woman would be if he wasn't married to Peggy. Okay, so that's who I think what Sydney Sweeney represents, and again, Married with Children, a very conservative show. All things considered, of the shenanigans that went on in that show, and especially during a time where yes, the country was way more conservative than like these than like what the neoconservatives would be, and neoconservatism is like basically just the newer generation or the newer generations of people in a conservative space, political sphere wise, and technicality. And they sort of like, okay, we're basically keeping the foundation of what conservatism is, but now we're gonna allow a bit more flexibility. So neoconservatism would be any kind of conservatism that still believes in a traditional family structure, but is okay with like gay marriage being allowed, which I think is like the most what most people think. Like no one is against gay marriage, of course. And 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 to get back on track though, what I'm basically saying is that she it basically conservative in the eyes of like all these extreme leftists, okay? And that is where the issue comes from, okay? Because this video right here with Cat's Eye is made, or would coincidentally released like sometime after the Sydney Sweeney ad, where the kicker there was like Sydney Sweeney has great genes, and not jeans with a G. Okay, so we're talking about the J, not the G. Because it's a pun, it's a play on words. Okay, the joke is because we have to find genes, and once again, the feminist shouldn't be too mad because it's a woman using her body to sell product. Okay, she's in power according to the feminist. Yet somehow she's not allowed to do this now because now she is, quote unquote, somehow appealing to white supremacy, which, and they're only saying this because they're comparing this to the Hitler's the Nazi party propaganda of like the caricature of the Aryan race, which is the blonde hair, blue eye, Caucasian human, because it was for both men and women, so it was like the concept was almost in a way genderless, which also now puts in another like that us down in another rabbit hole. But like that was the culture, and so for years and years, and we can still argue today, is part of Nazism, but but that's not to say that it's all. It's like saying yes, a square is a rectangle, but not all rectangles are square. Like in some way, shape, or form, both I think the alt-right and Nazism, or some sections of the right, do lean towards thinking that yes, the idea of a blue hair, oh no, not blue hair. That's a caricature for a liberal selling me. But basically the idea of a blonde hair, blue eye, human, it should be the standard for their society because that image, that caricature represents the goal of what these people should strive to be. Now, how do you strive to be? To have completely different hair and blue eyes? Impossible. But I think the idea originally is to have like, okay, be the best version of yourself, and society should like be built in a way that allows for that to happen. In a way, under these like philosophical ideas, separate from like political theory and all of that. Because again, I think Hitler's idea was a very, very corrupt and evil too, because it was made with ill intents and not good intents. Because like, what was his goal? Kill all the Jews, gas them all, kill them Jews, take away some power that he thought they had. Now, some conspiracy theories have saying that like the Jews are controlling everything, but that's a can of worms that like we all know no one is allowed to comment on. So disregarding that, it is just, once again, I think people are just seeing a pattern that we need to more closely look at and see. Which is just like a fun ad that they were doing, a fun ad, it's a fun, playful ad, to sell jeans, and that was it really. And they also bring up a reference to a, I think it was either another like jean company, like a competing company, or like it would like this one, which is a reference to an older American Eagle ad that Sydney Sweeney did. But I think a Brooke Shields, what's the name of the model? I'll get back my sources. Who was I think a minor at the time in a commercial that you could argue that it is highly sexual and almost borderline CP. There's an argument definitely I could see there. But so like it's just a controversy. But at the end of the day, I think long story short, Sydney Sweeney is an actress, okay? Her job is to act, okay? And did she act in that commercial? Yet she acted as like a nameless sex symbol. And that's it, really. That's it. There's nothing more to it. And somehow that's just problematic because, as I just explained, the history of like, okay, what's the pattern they're ultimately looking at? There's also a pattern elsewhere to be seen because it's like she is subjectively by a lot of people to be deemed attractive. Also counting in homosexual women who probably also think she's hot. So this is both men and women of different types of different backgrounds all agreeing that she is attractive. And then they do this unhealthy thing of then attacking back, calling the other side ugly, and it just like once again true horse theory. Everyone just ends up doing the same old tactics, and I'm just saying it's kind of dumb that like we're putting spotlight on this instead of like the more important things of like, okay, are the tax deductions really happening? Are there tax deductions actually happening? What is going on with deportations a bit more, and what exactly like more detail, not just like, okay, this family was deported and that family is deported, but like what is going on in the numbers in the long term, okay? What is this gonna lead to? What can we predict is gonna happen? Is there any change we can do to prevent this from happening again? And is it even worth at all? Stuff like this is what we should be analyzing instead of stupid stuff like some random fake blonde celebrity in a commercial. And that is the end of my rant here. Go touch some grass, people.